Hello everyone, welcome to Asura Psych, and today I want to talk about whether or not personality is related to intelligence, or more specifically, IQ. Now you might look at certain personality types, like thinking types or intuitive types, and say, of course these types are more likely to have higher IQs or be more intelligent. It's kind of part of their type. But the reality is, it's not that cut and clear, and that's what I want to talk about today. Let's get into it. So despite what you might think about intelligence being related to things such as thinking, the thinking trait in personality models often isn't related to IQ nearly as much as the trait openness or intuition in Myers-Briggs terms. And the reason for this isn't quite exactly known, but openness to experience and intuition in personality models is the trait that often leads people to seek out new information. So it is often people who seek out new information or are interested in ideas who typically score better on standardized measures of intelligence, such as IQ tests. And this shows in the fact that there is a correlation between personality trait openness or intuition and IQ. It's about 0.4. Now, 0.4 is a weak moderate correlation. What that means is that there is a relation between the two, but it's not extremely significant. That said, the correlation becomes more interesting when you look at the details of it. So when we look at intelligence, we can see that it's typically broken down into two kind of subcomponents. This is crystallized intelligence and fluid intelligence. Fluid intelligence is typically what is thought of as intelligence. When you think of a smart person, they're often someone who has high fluid intelligence. And fluid intelligence is the ability to think quickly and interact with new information quickly. So crystallized intelligence, on the other hand, is one's ability to kind of maintain information and keep things in a crystallized form. This is facts, knowledge, things of that nature. So the interesting thing between trait openness or intuition and intelligence is that the correlation with or between the two comes from crystallized intelligence and trait intuition or openness, not fluid intelligence. The correlation between fluid intelligence and trait openness or intuition is very low compared to crystallized intelligence. And this shows that the correlation between the two is caused more so by the fact that intuitive or open people are more likely to seek out ideas or information and are therefore more likely to score well on crystallized intelligence portions of IQ tests compared to fluid intelligence portions of IQ tests. So what this essentially means is that if you factor out how crystallized intelligence impacts the overall correlation between intelligence and trait openness or intuition, that the impact of trait intuition or openness isn't as heavy as you would think it might be. So all of the 16 personality types have very similar levels of fluid intelligence, or what we would typically refer to as overall intelligence. And to me, this implies that all of the personality types are going to be very similar in how smart they are. But intuitive types are more likely to score better on IQ tests because they have an inherent interest in ideas and abstract concepts, which are typically things that are tested on in IQ tests or things of that nature. IQ is also influenced by things such as effort and preparation, and this means that types like INTs are far more likely to want to prepare for an IQ test compared to a type like an ESFJ. Because INT types typically value their intelligence, they value their ability to interact with new information quickly, so they're going to care more about doing well on an IQ test. And this is seen in the fact that INT types are going to be the types who are going to seek out IQ tests compared to a type like an ESFJ, who is going to more likely be put into a position where they have to take one or someone got them to take one. Well, then you might ask, how much can one really prepare for an IQ test? And the answer is actually quite astonishing. So the standard IQ is 100 with a standard deviation of 15. People who take an IQ test and then take it 1 week later, so a test-retest variable, typically score about 8 points higher on IQ tests. And this is really interesting because it shows that once they are exposed to the kinds of information that are in IQ tests, they score significantly better on them. So that means that types who pre-prepare for IQ tests or who value their results on an IQ test going into them are going to score typically far more better than those who don't. So an INTP or an INTJ who prepares for an IQ test is going to score better than, say, an ESFJ who's just going to go in blindly. This doesn't mean that they have inherently different levels of intelligence. It just means that they're both preparing for their world and their lives in different ways. ESFJ isn't going to value things like intelligence as inherently as an INTJ or an INTP would. A lot of the bias that comes from intelligence and intuition is from the idea that intuitive types are far more likely to be interested in abstract ideas and concepts compared to sensing types. And this doesn't mean that sensing types are inherently less intelligent than intuitive types. It just means that intuitive types are far more likely to seek out abstract ideas and concepts, which are things that we as a society perceive as being intelligent or being related to intelligence. Society doesn't often recognize the amount of intelligence that is required for things like engineering, which is typically a sensing-oriented field. But in reality, engineering is an extremely difficult field that requires high levels of intelligence. But you're not often going to see someone who is intuitive in the direct field of physical engineering or working with engineering on the physical scale. They're more so going to be creating the abstract ideas that are then converted by someone like an engineer into concrete reality. That said, both of these fields require immense levels of intelligence, and it is in the differences between these two that we can see how the intelligences between sensing and intuition play out. So my advice to all the intuitive types out there is to take a step back and realize that all of the sensing types in the world aren't going to be interested in the same things that you are. And that doesn't mean that they're less intelligent than you. It simply means that their life is oriented in a different way. They have different focuses, they have different passions and dreams and interests than you do. And for the sensing types out there, I want you to realize that just because you're not an intuitive type doesn't mean you aren't intelligent. And you may be looked down upon by the occasional intuitive type, but I would really recommend that you really embrace your sensing side, you embrace who you are as a person, and realize that you have gifts and talents as well, and that you don't need to be an intuitive type to change the world. Alright everybody, thanks for watching this video on intelligence and its relation to personality type. To me, this is a really interesting topic because everybody seems to think that they know about how personality is related to intelligence, but it's a lot more complicated than people tend to think it is. And I hope I've done a good job in this video explaining to you the nuances of that correlation. I have another video related to IQ and intelligence. It's about gifted individuals and their struggles with socializing with others, and I'll include that in the description box below if you're interested. I would like to remind everybody that I have personality typing sessions available. If you're interested in working with me to find out your personality type, you can find out more information about that at asurapsych.com. This has been Asura at AsuraPsych. Have a good one.